is entitled Top Rail Holidays Best of the Italian Alps. My name is Matt, and it's my pleasure to be with you on the webinar this afternoon. Now, just before we start, one slightly new feature that we have is we're just going to launch a poll at the start of the webinar just to see what sparked your interest in joining us today. So we're always keen to hear your feedback, whether it might be about where you'd like to travel to next or topics that you'd like us to cover in future webinars. And this is really useful for us as well, just to give us an idea about what brings everybody here this Tuesday afternoon. So I'll just pause for a few moments now, just to allow people time to vote on the poll, and you should be able to see on your screen an indication of what other people are saying as well, just to see who is choosing which option. So it'll give you an idea of how your response compares to everybody else as well. Fantastic! Thanks to everybody for voting there. I'll just leave that on another minute or two before I close the poll, and we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. Thanks everybody for voting there. Right, on we go. So what we'll cover in today's presentation is, firstly, we'll have a very brief introduction to Railbookers for the benefit of anyone who's not particularly familiar with who we are and what we do. Perhaps if this is your first webinar or you've not booked with us before, that could be useful. We'll very briefly look at what rail operators are doing in the current situation right now, just to keep things safe for everybody. And then, of course, we'll move on to the main part of the webinar, which is looking at a selection of great holidays, all featuring some wonderful destinations in the Italian lakes. So, brief introduction as promised, first of all. So, again, for the benefit of anyone perhaps who's new to us, why travellers love Railbookers and love travelling by train. There's a number of different reasons, really. One of them is that travelling by train really does open up a huge number of bucket list experiences, particularly if you're looking at travelling for a special occasion. It could be that, for example, you've always wanted to travel by train coast to coast overland across the USA. Maybe you've always wanted to head over to Venice in style on board the Orient Express, or perhaps, excuse me, you've just got one or two destinations that you've always wanted to visit, but for whatever reason, you've never quite got around to it. Whatever the example might be, there's plenty of great options by train. It also offers unparalleled freedom and flexibility as well. The vast majority of holidays that you'll see today, and also that we have on our website and in our brochure, can be done on any day of the year, all year round. So pretty much whenever you want to go, that's when the holiday can start. As many of you will testify as well, I'm sure, it's also the most scenic way to travel too. You really do see a lot more traveling at ground level as the scenery changes the further you go, and it makes the journey an exciting and important part of the overall holiday, rather than just a means of getting from A to B that you have to get out the way in order for the holiday to begin. All of the itineraries are customizable too. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that you might like the overall idea of the holiday, but wish you could change it slightly. You might want it to be slightly longer, maybe even slightly shorter, who knows? You might like to spend more time in one destination than we have outlined, or add an additional destination that isn't included at all. And all of those options and more are fine. All you need to do is let us know what would make the holiday perfect for you. If you're looking at traveling in advance more than 3 months out, which, let's face it, most people are right now, then it's just a small deposit to secure your holiday too, typically in the region of £200 to £250 per person. And then the remainder of your balance payment is not due until 90 days prior to departure. Excuse me, a little bit crackly today, just proving that we are doing the webinars live. So a slight frog in my throat, thanks for bearing with me. And really the key message is whether you're looking at traveling in 2 days' time or 2 years' time, our holidays go anytime, any day, anywhere. You also benefit from 24-hour support from our global team, not just here in the UK, but also our colleagues in Sydney, Australia, Toronto, Canada, and across the pond, both the east and west coast in the USA too. Now this is a handout which you can actually download if you don't have a copy already. There should be a link on board the screen, as you might have seen from the introductory slide before the webinar started. So if you'd like to download your own copy and you haven't done so as yet, I will give you a reminder just before we run out of time this afternoon. This great map shows many of the main train lines running across Europe, and all of the different colours refer to either a different train operator or a different type of train. And one of the confusing things about travelling by train can be that all of these different operators and companies, they don't always talk to each other, communicate with each other as well as they could do. They certainly don't release all of the tickets for booking at the same time. And it can just be confusing when there's more than one way of travelling from A to B. How do you know which is the best option for you or the most convenient? So what we aim to do here at Railbookers is really to take the mystery and confusion out of rail travel for you. And one way that we do that is by working directly with all of the main rail operators in Europe, North America and beyond. So Trenitalia, Deutsche Bahn, SNCF, Renfe over in Spain, Swiss Railways, Eurostar, where so many of our trips begin, of course, and across the pond with Via Rail in Canada and Amtrak too, and many, many more. And what that allows us to do is twofold, really. Firstly, it allows us to be able to have access to the best available prices for you, important for obvious reasons, but also it enables us to be able to advertise all of the holidays that you see here up to 2 years in advance. And that's important, particularly if you're celebrating a special occasion or looking to travel at a peak busy time and you want to make sure you can get your space confirmed. And it means that when you do confirm it, it's going to be confirmed at this year's prices. So you won't be subject to any price increases on the trains that may happen over the next 24 months. We do also have a maximum flexibility offer taking place at the moment that I need to make you aware of. For new reservations, you can change your travel dates or postpone your trip up until 5 days prior to departure. And also for existing reservations, you can reschedule at any point up until 5 days prior to your departure date. We also have some limited time offers available where you can save up to £300 per couple on a variety of different holidays to Switzerland, Scotland and Vienna, £400 per couple heading over to Italy via the Alps, and £500 per couple heading over to the Italian lakes and Swiss mountains. If you'd like to see which holidays are valid for those particular offers, if you head to our website, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, railbookers.co.uk, across the top of the screen there is a row of blue tabs, and if you click on the one in the middle that says special offers, it should be the middle one of 5, then you can find out which holidays are eligible to take advantage of those great savings. Now, a question that we are getting asked at the moment for very obvious reasons is, how are rail operators across Europe maintaining a safe travel environment? And the answer to that is really that they're doing it in a number of different ways. One of them is by requiring facial coverings in stations and on trains for all passengers and staff. In many cases, they're also stopping the sale of food and drink on board trains too. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't bring your own food and drink on board with you and have a picnic, for example, if you want to, or you can. But it means that in some cases, you're not able to purchase food on board. In many cases, too, they're changing the existing seating configuration and seat allocations on board to allow for that all-important social distancing. They've increased the already existing cleaning and sanitation measures, and where possible, they're carrying out contactless ticket control, again with the emphasis on social distancing wherever they can. And I can vouch for this motley collection of individuals that you can see on the screen here, because these are my colleagues, or some of them at any rate. And each year we're lucky enough to be able to try out one of the trips that we feature on our website, which is great to get familiar with the destinations, the sightseeing tours that we feature, the hotels, the train journeys, of course. But also it means that if you do ever have a particular question about a destination or a holiday, there's likely to be someone available who's done that particular trip or been to that destination. So as we like to put it, we know because we go. Okay, that's the introduction over. And now let's move on to looking at some great holidays, all featuring those beautiful destinations, the Italian lakes. These would all be, perfect for next year, or even into 2022. As I mentioned before, we can book all of these trips up to 2 years out. And the first one, well, the title really gives you a good indication of what's going to be included here. We've got the best of the Italian lakes. Now, on this particular holiday, you'll see an aeroplane symbol indicating that you can begin the holiday with flights in and out of Zurich. But if you were to actually find that on our website, there's actually options available for most of these trips, either by air or rail, to start the holidays off. So if you prefer to begin by train, then it's just a short Eurostar journey over to Paris from London, which is around about 2 hours and 20 minutes. A simple change in Paris before taking a high-speed TGV Lyria just over the 4-hour mark from Paris direct to Zurich. So once in Zurich, we have a one-night stay in Zurich itself before taking a really scenic train journey through the stunning Swiss Alps along the Simplon Pass. Absolutely beautiful journey, lots of mountains and lakes that you go past there, before heading down to Lake Maggiore for a 3-night stay in Stresa. Whilst there, we have a Borromeo Island hop-on, hop-off boat tour, so you can see explore some of the beautiful islands that are located on Lake Maggiore. Then next, we head to Lugano for a 2-night stay, including a Lugano food tour, before finishing up in Cadenabia on the shores of Lake Como for a 3-night stay there, before heading back to Zurich and then heading home. And this is our first port of call. Absolutely stunning, isn't it? I hope you agree. Beautiful setting. This is Lake Maggiore, and more specifically, the town of Stresa. Lake Maggiore is the second largest lake in Italy, located just south of the Alps, as you can see by that beautiful backdrop there. Stresa is a really nice place to stay, perfect base to explore the lake. It's got lots of famous buildings there too, including Villa Pallavicino, which has got really extensive gardens and its own private zoo that you can explore. And there's also a very famous local landmark, the Grand Hotel des Îles Borromée, which has been frequented by many a famous guest over the years, including the author Ernest Hemingway, for example. On the second day in Stresa, you can take advantage of that tour that I mentioned to explore the tiny Borromean Islands. And you can see a couple of them in the middle of the lake there on the screen. So you can do the tour by ferry. And highlights include Isola Bella, which is home to the Borromeo family palazzo. And also there's some, again, really beautiful botanical gardens on Isola Madre. So there's quite a few of these small islands. They're very, very easy to explore. Very, very interesting places to visit, as we've just seen. But also, whenever you visit one of these beautiful Italian lakes, one of the best ways to explore the surrounding area and also get different views of the lake and the surrounding environment is to travel by ferry across the lake from one town to another, because you get different views, different perspectives of the lake and the surrounding towns, different scenery, and it really does open it all up for you. So highly recommended for several reasons, really. And this is our next port of call. This is Lugano, which is actually a city in southern Switzerland's Ticino region, but it's actually Italian speaking. So a lot of people kind of consider it almost part of the Italian lakes for that reason, even though it's technically in Switzerland. So as you can imagine, it's got a real Mediterranean feel to it. There's a real mix of cultures there. Again, it's surrounded by mountains, as you can see, again, these beautiful images that we have. But it's got a very different feel. I think you can see it feels different already to Lake Maggiore that we looked at on the previous slide. So it's not just a case of, going from one lake to somewhere that looks exactly the same. It's got a very different feel to it. And again, there's lots of beautiful spots and small towns that you can visit alongside the lake. And the best way of visiting those is to take one of the frequent ferries that will interconnect between the towns along the lake. And you can see the way the lake curves around as well. So hopefully you can see from that what I was talking about before, where, if you do take a boat across the lake, you can see different parts of the lake and different scenery, and it really is the best way of exploring and traveling around and taking in some of the wonderful views that you get in this part of the world. And this is our final destination, Lake Como. Now, on this particular holiday, we stay in Cadenabbia, which is a small resort on the western shoreline, and that makes for a really quiet, tranquil base to explore the lake from. Again, the best way of seeing the lake, Como is in is almost like a big Y shape, the lake itself. So again, you get lots of different views from traveling along the lake, which is highly recommended. Really can't stress that enough. And one place you should definitely visit is taking a ferry over to the old town of Como itself, the historic old town, which is over 400 years old. And a couple of highlights to visit there are definitely the famous cathedral, the Duomo, but also there's a funicular railway that you can take from close to the shores of the lake, actually, which runs up to a little town called Bernina, which is in the hilltops above the town of Como. And you get some amazing views looking down onto Como, the lake. You can see as far as the mountains, the Alps in the distance, and there's a couple of little cafes and small restaurants there where you can enjoy a drink or a meal and just take in an absolutely stunning backdrop. So I highly recommend doing that. But three great, beautiful destinations, as hopefully you can see here, all a little bit different with different things to offer and a different feel to them, and they all complement each other really well. Next up, it's our Venice and Lake Como via the Alps holiday. So this one is 8 days in duration. Here we start off in London once again with Eurostar journey to Paris. So as I said, it's just over the 2-hour mark, 2 hours and 20 minutes normally. Simple change in Paris before taking a direct high-speed TGV train to Geneva, Switzerland, and that is just over the 3-hour mark, around about 3 hours and 6 minutes. Geneva is a perfect spot for an overnight stay to break the journey up. All of the hotels that we feature are located in the old town, which is really close to the lake. So perfect opportunity to take a wander or a stroll around the lake, either pre or post dinner, or both if you prefer. And then the next day, you've got that wonderful train journey once again, but this time all the way through to Venice. So you go direct through the stunning Simplon Pass, which is the route that the Orient Express takes when it heads from Venice to London. Absolutely amazing scenery, as we'll see in a second. Over to Venice for a 3-night stay, exploring the islands. Of course, so much history. What a wonderful destination to visit. And then after Venice, relaxing by Lake Como. This time we do stay in Como itself on this holiday in the heart of the old town for a 3-night stay. And then you can either head to Milan to fly home, or if you prefer to come back by train, you can take it a little bit more leisurely, spend an overnight stay in Turin, and then the next day take the train through the French Alps this time, passing quite close to some of the ski resorts, actually, Chamonix, places like that, as you go through the French Alps, into France, over to Paris, and then, of course, Eurostar back through to London. Oh, and we've seen the presentation seems to have gone to sleep for a second. There we go. Again, just proving that it's all live. No pre-recorded stuff here. This is the Simplon Pass. This is the journey that I've been talking about both on the last holiday, heading down to Lake Maggiore, and also here over to Venice. And this is some of the amazing scenery that you would take in on this particular journey. So you can see you've got that wonderful alpine backdrop. Really beautiful. You also, see some Great Lakes as well, actually, as part of this particular journey, because the very first thing you do when you leave Geneva is the train actually heads around Lake Geneva itself as you go through Lausanne, Montreux, and then start to head down towards Italy. And you also get glimpses of Lake Maggiore as well. And so lots and lots of great scenery available. Absolutely beautiful. And I think this type of holiday like this one, it really does cover everything that you want from a holiday by train. Because you get some amazing scenery on the way, which you wouldn't see if you were using any other form of transportation. And then you've got great destinations, of course, at the end of it, which is, I suppose, what we're all looking for when we think of a holiday like this one. something slightly different next up, and this is perhaps a perfect option for somebody who might be celebrating a special occasion over the next 12 to 18 months or so, who knows. This is our Venice Simplon Orient Express holiday with Lake Garda and Lake Como. So what's really nice about this is first of all, you have the wonderful journey on board the Venice Simplon Orient Express as you travel overnight from London through to Paris, then through France into Switzerland, Austria, and then finally down to Venice. 2 nights in Venice, and then you can relax in the Italian lakes with 2 nights in Sirmione on Lake Garda, and then 2 nights at Lake Como before heading back to Milan either to train or plane home. And for anyone who has been thinking or always wanted to travel on this most iconic of train journeys, this is a little view into what life is like on board. On the right-hand side, this is the bar car on board the train. And this really is the social hub where everyone comes together in the evening, both pre and post dinner. And if you can imagine everybody dressed up for dinner, there's normally a pianist who plays as well. It's a great place to just take in the surroundings, the ambience on board this wonderful historic train journey, perhaps get to know your fellow passengers as well, or some of them, and just wonderfully atmospheric. The whole journey itself really is like traveling back in time. The staff are all dressed up in their traditional uniforms. The decor is, absolutely spot on as well. And it really does harken back to the golden age of travel in so many ways. Top left, you can see an example of some of the amazing meals that are served on board the train, all of which are cooked on board by the team of chefs on board the train. Looks like some very tasty lobster by the looks of it there. That's very nice too. There are 3 different restaurant cars available on board the train, all of which are slightly different from each other. And again, just wonderful period style, really, really enjoyable meal, great service, great food, and of course wonderful scenery that you go past as well. And bottom left, you can take a view through the doorway into the cabins on board the Orient Express just to see what life is like on board. Again, it's all the original furnishings, as you can see, and in the bottom center of the screen, of course, no trip is complete without the famous Orient Express slippers, which you might just be able to see at the bottom of the screen there. But a really, really memorable journey. And if you're able to do this one, it is a hugely memorable trip, perfect for celebrating a special occasion style. It definitely is, a trip of a lifetime, something that you'll never forget doing. And then after Venice, of course, we've got some perfect option to combine the Italian lakes with the Orient Express trip and then just relax and take it easy, perhaps recover from all of the food that you would have been eating on board the Orient Express. And this time we include Lake Garda as well. Garda is the largest of the Italian lakes. And here, as with all of our other itineraries to Lake Garda, you would stay in the town of Sirmione, which is a really stunning lakeside promontory, lots to see and explore. And it's kind of dominated by that fortress that you can see in the middle of the screen there, just in front of the mountains, which is called the Rocca Scaligera, which has got some amazing views of the harbour and of the lake itself. Again, it's a really quaint historical town, Sirmione, but to get the most out of the trip, again, I'd recommend taking, one day taking one of the ferries across the lake to some of the other towns like Desenzano, perhaps, which are also, interesting places to visit. But again, you just open up so much more of the lake and you get so many different viewpoints rather than being just in the one place. It really does open up the entire scenery for you, but absolutely stunning. And I think, this holiday, if you do have a special occasion coming up that you'd like to celebrate in style, then, this one really does fit the bill, I think. And now we'll look at a different way of combining one of our holidays on the Italian lakes with another very, very famous train journey, and one again that has some absolutely amazing scenery. This one is our Lake Como and Bernina Express holiday. And here, once again, we start off in London, Eurostar to Paris, and high-speed TGV Lily over to Zurich, just over the 4-hour mark, that one. We have an overnight stop in Zurich, and I definitely recommend perhaps having a meal in the old town on the banks of the Limmat. There's lots of nice restaurants that in spring, summer, and early autumn will open up, and you can eat in the open air. And then next day, we head over to Chur, the oldest town in Switzerland, to catch the famous Bernina Express train into Italy. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a second, because if we're talking about scenic train journeys, this is arguably, the best, or best isn't really the right word, is it? But it's arguably the most scenic one in Europe, and probably one of the most scenic journeys in the world. Absolutely stunning. And then you can relax after those train journeys with 3 nights in Lake Como. We include a private walking tour, which actually I was actually lucky enough to do last year, and a great way of learning more about the history of the destination, getting to know it a little bit more on a small group with your own guide. And then either you can head back to Milan and fly home, or take the train to Turin once again, spend the night in Turin, and then next day head through the French Alps to Paris and back to London. So this is the famous Bernina Express journey. And really, I think that image top left really does sum up some of the amazing scenery that you experience on this particular journey. In fact, the entire route is UNESCO World Heritage listed. So that gives you a kind of indication of what it's all about. It really is stunning scenery, and it varies too, from mountains to lakes to gorges. Lots and lots of different types of scenery. On this particular journey, you go over a really famous viaduct, which I think might be on the front cover of our brochure, if I'm not mistaken. It's in lots of other places as well. The famous shot you always see of the red train with the red livery going over the viaduct. And really, the whole journey is a miracle of engineering, is a really good way of describing how it works, because the train manages to climb from sea level to, at its highest point, 7,391 feet above sea level. And the way that it manages to do that is by climbing over a number of bridges and spirals, gradually gets higher and higher and higher, and then uses the same method to climb back down again. So really, really stunning. Again, beautiful scenery. So this is kind of the slow way into Italy, if you like. It's not the most direct way of heading there, but it certainly is going to be the most scenic way of heading over into Italy. You can see, looking at the image of the train carriage on the bottom left there, how those wonderful panoramic windows stretch all the way up from by your seat, all the way up to the ceiling pretty much. So wherever you're sat, every seat is lined up perfectly against the windows. Everybody gets a perfect view. And if you want to, you can always do what this lady is doing on board the train and relax with a glass of something or a coffee, whatever it might be, and take in some of that amazing scenery with a glass of something enjoyable in your hand. And next up, we'll look at traveling in the opposite direction, from heading northbound this time for a longer holiday, the Italian lakes and the Swiss mountains. So a great combination of some of the Italian lakes and some of that beautiful Swiss scenery once again. So here we start off in Rome with a 2-night stay, including a morning small group tour of the Vatican Museum, St. Peter's and the Sistine Chapel, before heading up to Lake Maggiore for a 2-night stay in Stresa. Then next we head on to Lake Como for a 2-night stay there. Then a night in Milan to break up some of the travel a little bit. And then we head up to Switzerland via that famous Bernina Express journey that we've just looked at, this time spending a night in the famous resort town of St. Moritz. Next, we take another really iconic train journey, the Glacier Express. Again, very, very famous one. Lots of amazing scenery, mountains and lakes on that particular journey. The slowest express train in the world, as they call it, because it's not really high speed at all. Just goes through some absolutely amazing landscapes. We head over to the town of Interlaken for a 2-night stay, including a day trip to the Jungfraujoch, the highest railway station in Europe, where again, a very different sort of journey, but again, amazing scenery available from the top of the mountain. On a clear day, you can see as far as the Black Forest, you can see into France, into Germany, really, really special. And then from there, head over to Zurich for an overnight stay before training or planing back to the UK. And here are some of the great destinations that we feature on this particular holiday. So top left, we've got Lake Maggiore once again, just that worth showing that image again, I think, for just that beautiful setting, isn't it, surrounded by the mountains. Top right, just opposite from that, that's the Swiss town of Interlaken. And the name Interlaken actually literally means between the lakes. It's nestled between Lake Thun and Lake Brienne. So we carry on the lake theme during your stay there. Bottom left, we've got the famous Duomo in Milan, and bottom right, the Vatican. And really, really good way, particularly if you've not been to the Vatican before, but even if you have, it makes a massive difference to seeing it this way with a small group tour with a guide, because it can get very busy in there. So you do get to see a lot. You get to learn a lot more about what you're actually looking at, and even more importantly, you get to beat the queues and go straight in. Because if you're traveling, well, pretty much most of the year, to be honest, if you've not got a specific slot pre-booked, the queues to get in are pretty long. So you avoid all of that and just go straight in and get underway looking around. So some great combinations there, a great mixture of history and some beautiful lakes and mountains as well. So perfect combination of Switzerland and Italy. So that's our in-depth look at the Italian lakes, but there's some more scenic lake holidays that we have available for you to choose from, including on the left-hand side of the screen, Austria, which we haven't really mentioned too much today. But as well as our Swiss Lakes and Mountains holidays, you might not be aware that we actually have an Austrian Lakes and Mountains holiday as well, including a 3-night stay in this really beautiful picture postcard destination, Hallstatt, which you can see on the bottom left of the screen there. Really, really stunning. You also take the train through the famous Arlberg Pass between Switzerland and Austria, which again is absolutely stunning. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have another one of our Via the Alps holidays, this time heading over to Lake Garda via the Swiss Alps. So 4-night stay in Sermione. Something different once again, on the left-hand side of the screen, we head over to Lake Bled in Slovenia for a 3-night stay, which, according to legend, was created by fairies a long time ago. And you can kind of get a little sense of what they were thinking of there if you look at that picture postcard setting once again. Then we head on to Ljubljana and then into Croatia for 2 nights in Zagreb, Split, and then finishing up on the Adriatic coast in Dubrovnik. So again, different parts of the world, but again, equally magnificent scenery available there. And an old favourite as well, an old chestnut to finish off with, perennially popular, and it's easy to see why. It's our Swiss Lakes and Mountains holiday, which is a perfect introductory trip, really, if you've never been to Switzerland before, or even if you have. You get to visit a lot of the highlights and do some of the most scenic train journeys, including the Bernina Express that we looked at today, the Glacial Express, the Jungfrau, and a few more as well. So lots and lots of great scenery available on that one. So that's some ideas from us. But as I mentioned, we always love to hear from you. So we'd love to hear where you're looking at planning your next holiday to. If you'd like to, you've got the questions box on the screen there. You can send them through to us on the webinar and let us know where you're interested in heading to next. Equally, if there are destinations you'd like to have us feature on a forthcoming webinar, please do let us know that too. We always love to hear from you, as I say. Some upcoming webinars to add to your diary for the rest of September. So as I mentioned, October and onwards is free at the moment. So if there is anywhere you'd love us to feature, now's the time to get your ideas in before we fill up the calendar for the rest of the year. So 15th and 17th of September, we've got something slightly different with some luxury rail experiences. So if you do have that special occasion coming up, that could be a good one to tune in for. Then we head across the pond on the 22nd and 24th of September to look at Canada, the Canadian Rockies and beyond, before finishing the month on the 29th of September and the 1st of October with a look at some iconic rail journeys. So that takes us pretty much to the end of the webinar. I did say that I would let you know or give you a reminder as we're getting towards the end, if you'd like to download the handouts, the map perhaps that we have at the start of the webinar. So if you'd like to download those and you haven't done so already, now is the time. But before we do that, we'll have a look at the questions you've sent through. I can see we've had quite a few come through already, as well as some ideas about where you'd like to travel to next and suggestions for future webinars and other things as well. So great to hear from you as always. Please do keep the feedback coming. And what I'll do is I'll see perhaps if I can answer one or two of the questions now. For everyone else who has submitted a question, don't despair, because one of the team will reach out to you to make sure that we answer your questions. So we will answer every single one that we receive one way or another. Okay, let's see if we can pick one or two that might be suitable for everybody. So let's have a little look. Lots of ideas about future trips, fantastic. Okay, we have a question from Joan here, whose question is asking to know a little bit more about the hotels that we feature on these holidays. Great question, Joan. I hope you're safe and well. Thanks for joining us today. And the answer to that one is, in each destination that we feature, we'll have a range of different hotels which will go from 3-star through to 5. So whatever your preference in terms of star rating, we'll have an option available for you. In all cases, they're easily accessible from the main train stations, and in larger destinations, they might be in different parts of the city as well. So a larger destination like Rome, for example. So if there's a particular part of the city you'd like to stay in, then you can ask us that too. All of the holidays, if you were to look them up on our website, each holiday, individual holiday, will be based on staying in a specific hotel, which you'll be able to see online. But there will be other options available too. So if for whatever reason you'd rather stay in a different hotel with a different star rating to the one that we've got featured, maybe it's based on a 5-star and you're happy with a 3-star or whatever it might be, then you just need to let us know that. We can change it for you. We've got different options available for you. So hopefully that one answers that question, Joan. Thank you very much for that once again. Let's just see what else we've got. We've got a question from Peter asking if there is a copy of this presentation available to review as we discuss with friends. Thank you for your question, Peter. The answer to that is yes. Once the webinar is finished today, you should get a copy of, well, we'll be recording we'll send one of the recorded versions. There was 3 different webinars today, so it might be this one, or it might be there was one at 10 a.m. and there was one at 5 p.m. There will be one at 5 p.m. rather. We don't indulge in time travel, so there will be one at 5 p.m. There was one at 10 a.m. So it'll be one of the 3. Peter, will be sent over to everyone who's attended today, and of course you can review that with your friends or share it with them if you like as well. Absolutely. So thanks very much for that question. Let's see if we can maybe do one more very quickly. We have a question from Susan, and Susan's question is, are all of the train travel or flights over to Italy included in the holidays, and is your luggage included as well? Really good question, and once again thank you for that, Susan. The answer to that is yes. All of the travel is included, and if there is a flight included, your luggage will be included in the cost. If you're traveling by train, because obviously on many of these holidays you either don't fly at all or you have the option not to fly, then you can actually take more luggage with you than you could if you were traveling to the airport. So if you've not headed over to mainland Europe by train before at all, then you can take up to 2 items of luggage per person, plus 1 item of hand luggage, and nobody weighs it either. So if you do want to stock up on souvenirs, presents, gifts for yourself, whatever it might be for family, friends, you can do that. You don't need to worry about tipping the scales over on the way home. As long as you can carry it and look after it, you can pretty much take whatever you want, is the short answer. Apart from offensive weapons, and you do need to be a little bit careful if you're taking alcohol back home, because there are some limits on the Eurostar as you head through the tunnel. So you need to just check up exactly how much you can take through if you're planning on bringing some Italian wine back with you, for example. But otherwise, yeah, you can, as long as you can carry it and look after it, then you're pretty much good to go. Okay, I think that's probably about all we have time for. Thanks very much to everyone who has sent through a question, and also their suggestions and thoughts as well. As I mentioned, if we haven't read out your question, one of the team will reach out to you over the next day or so to make sure that we get an answer across to you. Probably the last thing to say, and the most important thing to say, of course, in many ways as well at the current time, is to firstly say thank you to everybody for joining us today. I hope you're all safe and well. Please do stay that way. Look after yourselves. Very, very important, of course. Have a great rest of your afternoon. I hope the weather's not too bad where you are. It's actually looking a little bit sunny where I am now this afternoon. So I hope you can enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great evening too. And thank you for the pleasure of your company today. And who knows, maybe we'll see you once again on another one of our webinars in the not too distant future. Have a great afternoon and thanks for listening.